Imagine, if you will, a vast landscape stretching from sea to shining sea. This is the story of how America built one of the world's most complex and fascinating economic systems. A story that begins long before skyscrapers touch the clouds and continues to evolve with each passing day. Let's explore this journey together, fact by fact, like pages turning in a peaceful story. Tonight, as you drift towards sleep, consider this. The American economy produces approximately $25 trillion in goods and services each year. To put that in perspective, if you could somehow spend $1 million every single day, it would take you nearly 70,000 years to spend that amount. This massive economic engine, known as the gross domestic product, represents every cup of coffee sold, every home built, every app downloaded, and every service rendered across this nation of over 330 million people. 60,866. The story of America's economy begins, in many ways, with a simple piece of paper. In 1792, Congress passed the Coinage Act, establishing the U.S. dollar as the nation's official currency. Before this moment, colonists used a chaotic mixture of foreign coins, tobacco leaves, and even wampum beads for trade. The dollar brought order to this confusion, creating a common language for commerce that would eventually become the world's primary reserve currency. A currency so trusted that central banks around the globe hold more U.S. dollars than any other form of money. In the early years of the 20th century, financial panics would sweep through America like storms, leaving devastation in their wake. Then, in 1913, Congress created the Federal Reserve, a central banking system designed to be the steady hand guiding the ship through turbulent economic waters. The Federal Reserve, often simply called the Fed, doesn't answer directly to the President or Congress in its day-to-day operations. Instead, it operates with a careful independence, adjusting interest rates and managing the money supply to keep inflation stable and employment strong, like a skilled captain making tiny corrections to keep a massive vessel on course. America's economic strength doesn't come from just one place. It comes from an extraordinary diversity of industries woven together like threads in a vast tapestry. The service sector, including healthcare, education, entertainment, and finance, account for about 80% of the country's economic output. Meanwhile, manufacturing still produces everything from aircraft to pharmaceuticals. Agriculture feeds both the nation and much of the world, and the technology sector has revolutionized how humans communicate and work. This diversity acts as a cushion. When one industry faces challenges, others continue moving forward, creating resilience in the broader system. Picture a buttonwood tree standing on what is now Wall Street in Lower Manhattan. In 1792, 24 stockbrokers gathered beneath its shade and signed an agreement to trade securities among themselves. This humble beginning evolved into the New York Stock Exchange, now the world's largest stock exchange by market capitalization, worth over $25 trillion. Every day, millions of Americans participate in this market through their retirement accounts and investments, owning small pieces of thousands of companies. It's a system where a teacher in Oregon and a nurse in Florida can both be part owners of the same technology company or retail chain, sharing in the prosperity when these businesses succeed. There's a heartbeat to the American economy, and it pulses with consumer spending. Americans spend approximately 70% of the nation's GDP, purchasing homes, food, clothing, vehicles, and countless services that make up daily life. This consumer spending is what economists call the engine of the economy. When Americans feel confident about their jobs and future, they spend more freely. When uncertainty clouds the horizon, they pull back, saving more and spending less. This rhythm of confidence and caution has shaped economic policy for generations, with leaders always watching to see whether consumers are opening their wallets or keeping them closed. Behind every economic statistic is a human story, and nowhere is this more true than in America's labor force. Approximately 165 million Americans wake up each day and contribute their talents to the economy. Some in offices, some in hospitals, some on construction sites, and increasingly, some from home offices and coffee shops. The American labor force participation rate, which measures the percentage of working-age people either employed or actively looking for work, tells us much about the health and character of the economy. This rate has shifted over decades as more women entered the workforce, as automation changed the nature of work, and as baby boomers began retiring in waves. America doesn't exist as an economic island. It's deeply connected to the rest of the world through the gentle flow of trade. Each year, the United States imports over $3 trillion worth of goods from other nations while exporting approximately $2.5 trillion of American-made products and services to the world. These aren't just numbers. They represent California almonds traveling to China, German automobiles arriving in American driveways, smartphones assembled in Asia finding their way into American pockets, and American movies entertaining audiences from Mumbai to Mexico City. This intricate web of trade connects American farmers, workers, and businesses to markets across the globe. As you settle deeper into comfort, consider the quiet strength of America's smallest enterprises. Small businesses, those with fewer than 500 employees, account for 99.9% of all American businesses. That's right. Nearly every business in America is a small business. These are the family-owned restaurants that have served the same neighborhood for 3 generations. The local bookshops where owners know their customers by name. The independent software developers working from converted garages. Together, these millions of small businesses employ nearly half of all American workers, creating 47% of the nation's jobs. They are the roots of the economy, spreading wide and deep beneath the surface, holding everything together even when the winds of change blow strong. In 1938, during the depths of the Great Depression, President Franklin Roosevelt signed the Fair Labor Standards Act, establishing the first federal minimum wage at 25 cents per hour. This was a revolutionary moment, a promise that anyone who worked a full day deserved enough to live on. Over the decades, this wage floor has been adjusted 22 times, reaching its current federal level of $7.25 per hour in 2009. Yet the story doesn't end there. From many states and cities have set their own higher minimum wages, creating a patchwork across the nation where the same work might earn different wages depending on geography. This ongoing conversation about the minimum wage reflects deeper questions about fairness, prosperity, and what it means to share in the American dream. The federal government needs revenue to function, and one significant source flows from America's corporations. The corporate tax rate, which once stood as high as 52% in the 1950s, now sits at 21% following major tax reform in 2017. But here's where the story gets interesting. Corporate taxes account for only about 7% of total federal revenue. The bulk, nearly 50%, comes from individual income taxes paid by working Americans. This shift reflects profound changes in how the economy has evolved, how businesses structure themselves, and ongoing debates about who should bear the burden of funding government services, from highways to hospitals to national defense. Some numbers are so large they become almost abstract, floating beyond easy comprehension. America's national debt, the total amount the federal government has borrowed over time, now exceeds $33 trillion. To understand this scale, imagine that debt as a stack of $1 bills. It would stretch from Earth to the sun and back twice. This debt has accumulated over centuries through wars and recessions, tax cuts and spending programs, infrastructure projects, and emergency responses. While some view it with concern, others note that America has carried significant debt for most of its history, and that what matters most is the debt relative to the size of the economy, a ratio that rises and falls like tides through different eras. There's a force in the economy that works quietly, almost invisibly, changing the value of every dollar in your pocket. Inflation, the general rise in prices over time, means that a dollar today doesn't buy what a dollar bought yesterday, or what it will buy tomorrow. The Federal Reserve aims to keep inflation around 2% per year, a rate considered healthy for economic growth. To put this in perspective, what cost $1 in 1970 would cost about $8 today. This isn't a failure, but a feature of modern economies, encouraging people to invest and spend rather than hoarding cash under mattresses. Yet when inflation rises too quickly, as it has during certain periods, it can erode purchasing power faster than wages can keep up, creating anxiety and hardship for millions of families. Each month, economists and policymakers watch one number with particular intensity: the unemployment rate. This percentage tells us how many Americans who want to work cannot find jobs. During the Great Depression, unemployment soared to 25%. 1 in 4 workers idle, dreams deferred, families struggling. In recent prosperous times, it has fallen below 4%, meaning nearly everyone seeking work can find it. The number reveals not just statistics, but human stories. A recent college graduate landing their first job, a factory worker laid off when production moves overseas, a parent balancing childcare while searching for employment. The unemployment rate is perhaps the most human of all economic indicators, measuring hope and hardship in equal measure. For most Americans, the largest single investment they will ever make is purchasing a home. The housing market represents about 15 to 18% of GDP when you include construction, real estate services, and related industries. Beyond these numbers, housing wealth shapes American life in profound ways. Home equity, the difference between a home's value and what's owed on the mortgage, represents the largest component of wealth for middle-class families, often comprising 60% or more of their total net worth. When housing prices rise, millions of families feel wealthier. When they fall, as they did dramatically during the 2008 financial crisis, the effects ripple through the entire economy like waves from a stone dropped in still water. Something fundamental has shifted in how Americans work. The gig economy, where people work as independent contractors rather than traditional employees, now includes roughly 36% of American workers. These are the Uber drivers navigating city streets, the freelance graphic designers working from home offices, the food delivery workers bringing meals to doorsteps. This new arrangement offers flexibility and autonomy for some, allowing parents to work around childcare or students to earn while studying. Yet it also raises questions about benefits, job security, and the social safety net, challenging assumptions built when most workers held steady, long-term jobs with a single employer. The economy is evolving, and we're all witnessing the transformation unfold. In 1935, as America struggled through the Great Depression, the government made a promise: work your whole life, and we'll ensure you don't live in poverty during your retirement years. Social Security was born from this promise, creating a system where current workers pay taxes that support current retirees. Today, Social Security provides benefits to over 67 million Americans, not just retirees, but also disabled workers and survivors of deceased workers. For many elderly Americans, Social Security provides the majority of their retirement income. The system faces challenges as Americans live longer and the ratio of workers to retirees shifts, but it remains one of the most successful and popular government programs, a safety net woven into the fabric of American life. Let these stories settle in your mind like leaves drifting down a gentle stream. The American economy is more than numbers. It's millions of lives, countless dreams, and the daily efforts of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Rest now, as we prepare to explore even more. As your breathing slows and deepens, imagine the towering giants of American business. The Fortune 500, the largest corporations in America by revenue, together generate approximately 2/3 of the entire U.S. GDP while employing roughly 30 million Americans. These companies, from technology titans to retail giants to energy conglomerates, wield enormous influence over the economy. Yet here's a fascinating detail. Just the top 10 companies alone, names like Apple, Amazon, and Walmart, account for over $2 trillion in annual revenue. This concentration of economic power in relatively few hands raises enduring questions about competition, innovation, and opportunity. These corporations are like great redwood trees in the economic forest, magnificent in their scale, Yet their very size affects what can grow in their shadow. Though only 2% of Americans now work directly in agriculture, down from over 40% a century ago, American farms feed not just the nation, but much of the world. The United States is the world's largest exporter of agricultural products, shipping over $170 billion worth of food and fiber abroad each year. Vast fields of wheat stretch across Kansas like golden oceans. Corn grows tall in Iowa's rich soil, and California's Central Valley produces a bounty of fruits and vegetables. American agriculture has become so productive through mechanization and technology that one farmer today feeds roughly 165 people. This transformation freed millions to pursue other work, enabling the rise of industry and services, yet also fundamentally changed rural life and the American landscape. In the story of America's economy, not all participants have walked the same path. Women, who now make up nearly half of the workforce, still earn approximately 82 cents for every dollar earned by men when comparing median annual earnings for full-time, year-round workers. This gap narrows when comparing similar jobs and experience levels, yet it persists. The reasons are complex: career interruptions for childcare, clustering in lower-paying fields, discrimination, negotiation differences, each factor contributing to a larger pattern. Progress has been steady. In 1980, women earned just 60 cents on the dollar. Yet the journey toward economic equality continues, with each generation of women navigating these realities while gradually reshaping workplace norms and expectations. Take a slow, deep breath and consider this. Healthcare spending in America has grown to consume nearly 18% of the entire economy, far more than any other developed nation. Americans spend over $4 trillion annually on healthcare, which averages to about $12,500 per person each year. This includes everything from routine checkups to emergency surgeries, from prescription medications to hospital stays, from health insurance premiums to nursing home care. The reasons for these high costs are debated: administrative complexity, expensive treatments, high drug prices, defensive medicine. But the impact is clear. Healthcare costs affect family budgets, business decisions about hiring, and government spending at every level, shaping the economy in profound and sometimes troubling ways. The way Americans shop has undergone a quiet revolution. E-commerce, buying goods online, now account for approximately 15% of all retail sales, a percentage that continues climbing steadily each year. This shift has transformed main streets across America, emptying some traditional stores while creating entirely new jobs in warehouses, delivery, and technology. The story began slowly in the 1990s with pioneers selling books online, then accelerated as smartphones put shopping power in every pocket. During the pandemic, millions of Americans who had never ordered groceries online suddenly became comfortable with digital commerce. This transformation represents more than convenience. It's reshaping where Americans work, how goods move across the country, and what becomes of the shopping malls and department stores that once anchored community life. Education has long been called the ladder to the American dream, yet climbing that ladder now requires borrowing for millions of Americans. Student loan debt has surpassed $1.7 trillion, held by over 43 million borrowers. The average student loan borrower owes roughly $37,000 upon graduation. This debt shapes life choices in countless ways, delaying home purchases, postponing marriage and children, influencing career decisions. A generation ago, working a summer job could cover a significant portion of college costs. Today, 4 years of public university can cost well over $100,000, including living expenses. This debt represents both an investment in human capital, the skills and knowledge that drive economic growth, and a burden that weighs on young Americans as they begin their economic journeys. For decades, America's economic security depended heavily on foreign oil, with prices at the gas pump tied to events in distant lands. Then, through technological advances in hydraulic fracturing and horizontal drilling, America became the world's largest producer of oil and natural gas. The United States now produces over 12 million barrels of oil per day, transforming from energy importer to exporter. Yet even as this fossil fuel production reached new heights, another transformation began: the rise of renewable energy. Solar and wind power generation has grown exponentially, with renewables now providing about 20% of electricity generation. The economy stands at an energy crossroads, balancing the immediate benefits of fossil fuels against the long-term imperative of addressing climate change. In factories across America, robots work alongside humans or sometimes replace them entirely. Automation and artificial intelligence are transforming the workplace at an accelerating pace. An estimated 47% of U.S. jobs face potential automation in the coming decades, though predictions vary widely. Self-checkout kiosks have reduced cashier positions. Automated phone systems have changed call centers, and increasingly sophisticated software performs tasks once requiring human accountants, paralegals, and analysts. Yet history offers perspective. Similar fears arose with past technological waves, from the cotton gin to the personal computer. While some jobs disappear, others emerge, often requiring different skills. The challenge lies in helping workers transition, ensuring the benefits of productivity gains are widely shared, and preparing the next generation for an economy where human creativity and judgment become ever more valuable. America's economy doesn't distribute prosperity evenly across the map. The median household income varies dramatically by state, from over $90,000 in Maryland and Massachusetts to under $50,000 in Mississippi and West Virginia. Coastal cities tend to have higher incomes, but also much higher costs of living, meaning that six-figure salaries in San Francisco or New York might purchase less comfort than modest incomes in the Midwest or South. These geographic disparities reflect different industrial bases, educational opportunities, and historical development patterns. They shape migration patterns as Americans move in search of opportunity, and they influence politics as regions with different economic experiences develop different perspectives on what policies might improve their circumstances. The American economy is really many economies, woven together but experienced differently depending on where you call home. Rest in the knowledge that you've journeyed through so much, from corporate giants to family farms, from technological change to geographic diversity. Let your mind drift peacefully as these stories find their place in your thoughts, like pieces of a vast puzzle slowly revealing a picture. Let your thoughts drift to a powerful force that works silently while you sleep: the magic of compound interest. Albert Einstein allegedly called it the eighth wonder of the world, and for good reason. When you invest money and earn returns, those returns themselves begin earning returns, creating a snowball effect over time. Consider this peaceful example. If a 25-year-old invests just $200 per month with a 7% annual return, by age 65, they would have over $500,000, even though they only contributed $96,000 of their own money. The rest, more than $400,000, comes from compound growth. This principle underlies retirement accounts, college savings plans, and long-term wealth building. Time is the crucial ingredient, which is why starting early matters so profoundly. While you rest tonight, millions of Americans have money working for them through this gentle, persistent mathematical force. Not all economic value can be touched or seen. America's economy increasingly rests on intangible assets: patents, trademarks, copyrights, and trade secrets. Intellectual property-intensive industries contribute over $7 trillion to the U.S. economy annually, representing about 41% of GDP. Think of the formula for Coca-Cola, kept secret for over a century, or the thousands of patents protecting pharmaceutical innovations, or the copyrights on movies, music, and software that generate billions in revenue. A smartphone contains technology covered by hundreds of thousands of patents from numerous companies. This invisible infrastructure of ideas protected by law has become more valuable than many physical assets. The American economy has evolved from one built primarily on manufacturing tangible goods to one where thoughts, innovations, and creative works generate immense wealth. Three little numbers between 300 and 850 can determine much about your economic life in America. Your credit score, calculated from your borrowing and payment history, influences whether you can get a mortgage, what interest rate you'll pay on a car loan, sometimes even whether you'll be hired for a job. Approximately 90% of lenders use FICO scores when making lending decisions. A person with excellent credit over 750 might pay 3% interest on a mortgage, while someone with poor credit below 600 might pay 6% or be denied entirely, a difference that could mean hundreds of thousands of dollars over the life of a home loan. This system, developed in the late 20th century, has become a powerful gatekeeper to economic opportunity, rewarding financial responsibility, but also potentially trapping those who stumble into a negative cycle of poor credit and high borrowing costs. Breathe deeply and consider how Americans share risk. The insurance industry, covering health, life, property, and automobiles, collects over $1.3 trillion in premiums annually. The fundamental principle is elegant. Many people pay relatively small amounts into a common pool, and when misfortune strikes a few, the pool covers their losses. Americans spend an average of $1,700 per year on auto insurance, $1,200 on homeowners insurance, and thousands more on health insurance. Insurance companies employ armies of actuaries who calculate risks with mathematical precision, determining how much to charge based on statistical probabilities. This system spreads risk across society, allowing individuals to protect themselves against catastrophic losses that would otherwise be financially devastating. It's a form of mutual protection, though one that can feel burdensome when premiums rise or claims are denied. The American economic system, unlike many throughout history, believes in second chances. Approximately 400,000 to 750,000 Americans file for bankruptcy each year, a legal process that allows individuals or businesses overwhelmed by debt to reorganize or discharge their obligations. About 2/3 of personal bankruptcies result from medical bills, job loss, or divorce, life circumstances rather than reckless spending. After bankruptcy, people emerge with a clean slate, though with a mark on their credit history that fades over 7 to 10 years. This reflects a distinctly American philosophy that economic failure shouldn't be permanent, that people deserve opportunities to rebuild. Many successful entrepreneurs, including Walt Disney and Henry Ford, experienced bankruptcy before achieving their greatest successes. The system acknowledges that risk-taking sometimes leads to failure, but failure shouldn't mean perpetual punishment. Drive through almost any American town and you'll see them. McDonald's golden arches, Subway's green and yellow signs, Starbucks coffee cups in nearly every hand. Franchises, businesses where individuals pay to operate under an established brand, represent over 750,000 establishments in America, employing roughly 8 million people. The franchise model is distinctly American, offering a middle path between starting a business from scratch and working for someone else. A franchise owner follows the parent company's systems and benefits from its brand recognition, but bears the financial risk and reaps the rewards of their local operation. This model has spread American brands worldwide, from fast food to hotels to fitness centers, creating economic opportunity while also contributing to the similarity of commercial landscapes from coast to coast. Behind many of America's most transformative companies lies a unique form of financing. Venture capital firms invest over $150 billion annually in startup companies, betting on bold ideas that might change the world or might fail completely. These investors provided the early funding for Apple, Google, Facebook, and countless other companies that reshaped modern life. They typically invest in 10 or 20 startups, expecting most to fail, but hoping one or two will succeed spectacularly enough to return the entire fund's investment many times over. This high-risk, high-reward approach fuels innovation in ways that traditional bank loans cannot, because banks require certainty while venture capitalists embrace uncertainty. This system has helped America remain at the forefront of technological innovation, though it also creates pressure for rapid growth that can distort business priorities and concentrate wealth among a relatively small group of successful investors and entrepreneurs. The United States spends approximately $800 billion annually on national defense, more than the next 10 countries combined. This enormous expenditure represents about 3.5% of GDP and employs millions of Americans directly and indirectly. Defense contractors, from massive corporations to small specialized suppliers, build everything from aircraft carriers to combat boots. Military bases anchor the economies of countless communities across America. Yet this spending affects the broader economy in complex ways. Research funded for military purposes has produced countless civilian innovations. The internet began as a defense project, as did GPS technology. At the same time, economists debate whether military spending stimulates or diverts resources from civilian economic growth, and whether America could achieve similar economic benefits from investing these resources elsewhere. American culture flows outward through movies, television, music, and video games, and this cultural influence generates substantial economic returns. The entertainment industry contributes over $800 billion to the U.S. economy annually, with Hollywood films earning roughly 70% of their revenue from international markets. American music dominates global charts. American streaming services reach hundreds of millions of subscribers worldwide, and American video games entertain players across continents. This soft power, the ability to influence through culture rather than force, serves economic purposes, creating jobs at home while building global brands and relationships. From Marvel superheroes to hip-hop artists to streaming series watched from Seoul to Sao Paulo, American entertainment shapes global culture while generating profits that flow back to the United States. Feel yourself sinking deeper into relaxation as these economic stories wash over you like gentle waves. From the magic of compound interest to the spread of American culture, each fact is a thread in the larger tapestry. Let them blend together now, forming a soft background for your peaceful rest. As you settle into deeper rest, consider a quiet revolution in how Americans save for retirement. In 1978, a provision was added to the tax code, Section 401k, that allowed employees to defer income taxes on retirement savings. What began as an obscure tax loophole transformed American retirement, shifting responsibility from employers to individuals. Today, over 60 million Americans participate in 401k plans, with total assets exceeding $7 trillion. This system replaced traditional pensions, where companies guaranteed monthly payments for life. The change offered workers more control and portability, allowing them to take their savings when changing jobs. Yet it also transferred investment risk to individuals, many of whom lack financial expertise. The 401k symbolizes a broader shift in American economic life, from collective security toward individual responsibility, with all the freedom and anxiety that entails. Something remarkable happened in the early 21st century. Americans began renting out their spare bedrooms to strangers, driving people around in their personal cars for money, and lending tools to neighbors through apps. The sharing economy, facilitated by platforms like Airbnb, Uber, and TaskRabbit, allows people to monetize underused assets. At its peak, these platforms created supplemental income for millions, with some Americans earning their entire living this way. The concept rests on trust enabled by technology. Rating systems, background checks, and payment guarantees convince strangers to enter each other's cars and homes. This economy challenges traditional business models and regulations, raising questions about labor protections, insurance, and local community impacts. Yet it also demonstrates how technology can create markets where none existed before, turning idle resources into productive assets. The government doesn't just spend money directly, it also forgoes revenue through tax breaks, creating what economists call tax expenditures. These total over $1.5 trillion annually, representing money the government doesn't collect because of deductions, credits, and exemptions. The mortgage interest deduction alone costs the government about $25 billion per year in foregone revenue, essentially subsidizing home ownership for those who itemize their taxes. The employer-sponsored health insurance exclusion costs even more, around $300 billion annually, because health benefits aren't counted as taxable income. These hidden subsidies shape behavior profoundly, encouraging home buying, retirement saving, and employer-provided benefits. Yet they're often invisible in budget debates, creating a shadow welfare state that predominantly benefits middle and upper-income Americans while receiving far less scrutiny than direct government spending programs. The economic story of America cannot be told without acknowledging deep disparities in wealth by race. The median white family has roughly 8 times the wealth of the median black family and 5 times that of the median Hispanic family. These gaps persist across income levels and reflect centuries of accumulated disadvantages, from slavery to Jim Crow segregation to discriminatory lending practices that continued into recent decades. Homeownership, the primary wealth-building tool for most Americans, was systematically denied to black families through redlining and restrictive covenants well into the 1960s. The effects compound across generations. Families without wealth cannot provide down payments for homes, fund businesses, or help children through college without debt. Closing these gaps requires understanding their historical roots and addressing both past injustices and present barriers to wealth accumulation. For many American families, childcare represents one of the largest budget items, often exceeding rent or mortgage payments. The average cost of childcare ranges from $9,000 to over $22,000 per year per child, depending on location and age. In many states, infant care costs more than in-state college tuition. This expense forces difficult choices. Some parents leave the workforce because childcare costs consume their entire salary, while others cobble together informal arrangements or rely on family members. The challenge is particularly acute for single parents and lower-income families. High child care costs affect not just family budgets, but the broader economy. They influence decisions about whether to have children, whether both parents work, and how much parents can save for retirement. Unlike many developed nations, the United States provides limited public child care support, leaving families to navigate this expense largely on their own. Let your breathing slow as we consider the factories of America. Manufacturing now accounts for about 11% of GDP, down from over 25% in the 1950s. Yet American factories still produce more than ever before. Output has steadily increased even as employment declined from 19 million manufacturing jobs in 1979 to about 12 million today. How is this possible? Automation and productivity improvements mean fewer workers produce more goods. A modern auto plant uses robots for welding and painting, reducing the workforce while increasing precision and output. This transformation reflects both technological progress and global competition, as labor-intensive production moved to countries with lower wages. The challenge for policymakers and communities is managing this transition. How to maintain prosperity when manufacturing jobs that once anchored the middle class require fewer workers and different skills. Economists measure income inequality using something called the Gini coefficient, a number between 0, perfect equality, where everyone has identical income, and 1, perfect inequality, where one person has everything. America's Gini coefficient stands at approximately 0.48, among the highest in the developed world and significantly higher than in the 1970s when it was around 0.40. This rising inequality means income gains have flowed disproportionately to those at the top. The top 1% of Americans now hold about 35% of all wealth, while the bottom 50% hold just 2%. These statistics represent real differences in lived experience. Neighborhoods with excellent schools versus struggling ones, access to health care, retirement security, and opportunities for the next generation. Whether this level of inequality is acceptable or alarming, sustainable or dangerous, remains one of the central economic and political debates of our time. Beneath the surface of daily economic life lies the infrastructure that makes everything possible: roads and bridges, water systems and power grids, airports, and internet cables. The American Society of Civil Engineers estimates that the United States needs to invest about $2.6 trillion over 10 years just to bring existing infrastructure to adequate condition. Every day, Americans drive over bridges built decades ago, some structurally deficient but still in use. Water mains break in cities across the country, some dating back a century. Yet infrastructure spending often loses out in political battles because the benefits are diffuse and long-term, while the costs are immediate and concentrated. When infrastructure works well, it's invisible. Only when it fails do we notice. This underinvestment acts as a drag on economic growth, increasing transportation costs, limiting business expansion, and occasionally leading to tragic failures. Education has become the strongest predictor of economic outcomes in modern America. Workers with bachelor's degrees earn approximately 65% more over their lifetimes than those with only high school diplomas, a gap that has widened significantly since the 1980s. Those with advanced degrees earn even more, while those without high school diplomas face increasingly limited opportunities. This education premium reflects the changing nature of work, as routine manual and clerical jobs decline, while positions requiring specialized knowledge expand. Communities with high education levels attract businesses and investment, while those with lower educational attainment struggle economically. This reality creates pressure on families to invest heavily in education, contributing to rising student debt, and raises profound questions about access and opportunity. Whether America remains a place where talent and effort, rather than family circumstances, determine success. Feel the weight of these stories settling gently around you like a soft blanket. From retirement accounts to racial disparities, from infrastructure to education, each fact reveals something about how we live together in this vast economic system. Rest now in this knowledge, letting it fade into the peaceful background of sleep. As you drift deeper into tranquility, imagine the invisible choreography that brings products to your door. The logistics and warehousing industry has grown into a $1.6 trillion sector, employing over 5 million Americans. Behind every online order delivered to your doorstep lies a vast network. Trucks moving along interstate highways through the night, warehouses the size of small towns where robots and humans work side by side, algorithms predicting what products should be stored near which cities. Amazon alone operates over 1,000 fulfillment and logistic facilities worldwide. This industry transformed during the pandemic, becoming essential infrastructure as millions sheltered at home. The efficiency is remarkable. You can order a book in Seattle and have it arrive in Miami within 2 days. Yet this speed comes with costs. Warehouse workers facing intense productivity quotas, delivery drivers navigating tight schedules, and environmental impacts from millions of packages crisscrossing the nation daily. There was a time when nearly 1 in 3 American workers belonged to a labor union. Today, that figure has fallen to about 1 in 10. Just 10.1% of wage and salary workers are union members. This dramatic decline, from a peak of over 35% in the 1950s, reflect profound changes in the American economy and labor law. Manufacturing jobs, traditionally highly unionized, have declined while service sector jobs, often non-union, have grown. Some states passed right-to-work laws that weakened union finances. Globalization increased competition, giving employers leverage in negotiations. This shift has coincided with stagnant wage growth for many workers and a declining share of national income going to labor versus capital. Yet recently, interest in unions has resurged among young workers, from coffee shops to tech companies, suggesting the pendulum may be beginning to swing back. America produces extraordinary medical innovations. More than half of new medicines worldwide originate from American pharmaceutical companies and research institutions. The United States invests over $200 billion annually in biomedical research, both public and private funding. This research has produced treatments for diseases once considered death sentences, from certain cancers to HIV. Yet these innovations come at premium prices. Americans pay more for prescription drugs than people in any other country. sometimes 2 or 3 times as much for identical medications. A vial of insulin that costs $10 to produce might retail for $300 in the United States, while selling for $30 in Canada. This pricing reflects patent protections, the absence of government price negotiations for Medicare, and the high costs of drug development. The tension between incentivizing innovation and ensuring affordable access remains unresolved, creating difficult. Consider the simple act of eating a meal prepared by someone else, an act so common, yet representing a massive slice of the American economy. The restaurant industry generates over $800 billion in annual sales, employing approximately 15 million workers, making it one of the largest private sector employers. From fine dining establishments to fast food chains, from food trucks to corporate cafeterias, Americans spend roughly half of their food budget on meals outside the home. Restaurants operate on remarkably thin profit margins, often just 3 to 5%, making them vulnerable to rising food costs, labor expenses, and economic downturns. The pandemic devastated the industry, closing thousands of establishments permanently while accelerating the shift toward takeout and delivery. Yet restaurants represent more than economic statistics. They're community gathering places, first jobs for teenagers, and stepping stones for immigrant entrepreneurs pursuing the American dream. Let your thoughts float to something entirely new in the economic landscape. In 2009, a mysterious figure named Satoshi Nakamoto introduced Bitcoin, the first cryptocurrency, digital money operating without banks or governments. What began as an experiment has grown into a market with a total value that has at times exceeded $2 trillion. Millions of Americans now own cryptocurrencies, with some viewing them as investments, others as alternatives to traditional banking, and still others as technological curiosities. Blockchain technology underlying cryptocurrencies has applications beyond digital money, from supply chain tracking to digital contracts. Yet cryptocurrencies remain controversial. Their value swings wildly. They've been used for illegal transactions, they consume enormous amounts of electricity, and regulators struggle to determine how they should be treated. Whether cryptocurrencies represent the future of money or a speculative bubble remains hotly debated, but they've undeniably challenged traditional thinking about what money is and who controls it. America welcomes the world, and the world brings its wallets. International tourists spend approximately $180 billion annually in the United States, visiting landmarks from the Statue of Liberty to the Grand Canyon, from Disney World to San Francisco's Golden Gate Bridge. Meanwhile, domestic tourism, Americans traveling within their own country, generates over $1 trillion in spending. Tourism supports 9 million jobs directly in hotels, restaurants, attractions, and transportation. Small towns near national parks, beach communities, historic cities, all depend on the steady flow of visitors. The industry is remarkably sensitive to events beyond its control. Terrorism fears, pandemics, economic recessions, even the strength of the dollar all affect whether people travel. Yet the appeal of seeing new places, experiencing different cultures, and creating memories ensures tourism remains resilient, bouncing back after each setback. The buildings where Americans work, shop, and conduct business represent a $20 trillion asset class called commercial real estate. This includes office towers in downtown districts, shopping centers in suburbs, warehouses near highways, and apartment buildings in cities. Commercial real estate shapes skylines and neighborhoods, influences property tax revenues that fund schools and services, and provides retirement income for millions through REITs, real estate investment trusts that allow ordinary investors to own shares in commercial properties. Yet this market faces disruption. Remote work has left office buildings partially empty in many cities, raising questions about their future use. Traditional retail struggles against e-commerce, leaving malls seeking new purposes. The pandemic accelerated these trends dramatically. Cities now grapple with how to adapt, perhaps converting offices to housing, reimagining retail spaces for experiences rather than transactions, creating new economic models for spaces built for a world that's rapidly changing. Hidden between you and your prescription drugs sits an industry most Americans have never heard of: pharmacy benefit managers, or PBMs. These companies negotiate drug prices on behalf of insurance plans, deciding which medications are covered and at what cost. The three largest PBMs manage prescription benefits for roughly 270 million Americans, wielding enormous power over which drugs succeed or fail in the market. They negotiate rebates from drug manufacturers, keep some portion for themselves, and pass the rest to insurers. In theory, their bargaining power should lower costs. In practice, the system has become extraordinarily complex, with critics arguing PBMs create perverse incentives that actually increase drug costs while enriching middlemen. The opacity of their operations, rebates are often confidential, makes it difficult to assess their true impact. This invisible layer of the healthcare system significantly affects what Americans pay for medications, yet operates largely out of public view. As you sink deeper into rest, consider how the government shapes what grows in American fields. The federal government provides approximately $20 to $25 billion annually in agricultural subsidies, supporting farmers through direct payments, crop insurance, and price supports. These programs began during the Great Depression to stabilize farm income and ensure food security. Today, they disproportionately benefit large operations growing commodity crops: corn, soybeans, wheat, cotton, and rice, while small farms and those growing fruits and vegetables receive little support. These subsidies influence what Americans eat by making certain crops artificially cheap, contributing to corn syrup's prevalence in processed foods. They affect trade negotiations, as other countries object to competing against subsidized American agriculture. Supporters argue subsidies ensure a stable food supply and protect farmers from volatile markets. Critics contend they distort markets, harm the environment by encouraging monoculture, and primarily benefit wealthy agribusinesses rather than struggling family farms. Let these economic currents flow through your mind like a gentle river. From the logistics that bring goods to your door to the invisible managers of prescription drug prices, each system connects to the next. Rest peacefully now, knowing these complex mechanisms work quietly while you sleep. Allow your mind to wander through the messages that surround us daily. Americans are exposed to somewhere between 4,000 and 10,000 advertisements each day on billboards and buses, websites and social media, television, and streaming services. The advertising industry generates approximately $240 billion in annual revenue in the United States alone, employing hundreds of thousands of creative professionals, data analysts, and media buyers. Digital advertising now dominates, with companies like Google and Facebook capturing the majority of ad spending through sophisticated targeting based on user behavior and preferences. This industry doesn't just sell products. It shapes culture, influences political campaigns, and funds much of the free content we consume online. The news websites, social media platforms, and streaming services that appear free are actually supported by the attention we provide to advertisers, making our eyeballs and data the actual product being sold. Something fundamental shifted in how Americans find work. Temporary staffing agencies now employ approximately 3 million workers on any given day, providing flexible labor to companies that need extra hands during busy seasons or want to evaluate workers before offering permanent positions. This industry grew dramatically starting in the 1990s as companies sought to reduce fixed labor costs and increase flexibility. For workers, temp jobs offer a foot in the door, though often without benefits, job security, or clear advancement paths. Some workers prefer the flexibility and variety, moving between assignments and gaining diverse experience. Others find themselves trapped in a cycle of short-term positions, never quite achieving the stability of permanent employment. The rise of temp work reflects broader changes in the employer-employee relationship, a shift from mutual long-term commitment toward more transactional arrangements that prioritize flexibility over stability. The United States Patent and Trademark Office receives over 600,000 patent applications annually, granting protection to inventors for roughly 350,000 new inventions each year. Patents grant inventors exclusive rights to their creations for 20 years, theoretically encouraging innovation by allowing inventors to profit from their ideas. This system has protected everything from Thomas Edison's light bulb to modern smartphone technologies. Yet the patent system has grown controversial. Patent trolls, companies that acquire patents not to produce products but to sue others for infringement, cost the economy billions annually. Technology companies engage in patent wars, suing each other over features as basic as rounded corners on devices. Pharmaceutical companies use patents to maintain monopolies on life-saving drugs, sometimes making minor modifications to extend their exclusivity. The balance between protecting innovators and ensuring ideas can be built upon and improved remains delicate and contentious. Feel yourself drifting as we explore how Americans increasingly rent rather than own. The subscription economy has exploded in the 21st century. Americans now subscribe to streaming services, software, meal kits, razors, clothing, even cars, paying monthly fees instead of making one-time purchases. The average American household subscribes to approximately 4 streaming services alone, spending over $200 per month on various subscriptions. For businesses, this model creates predictable recurring revenue and deeper customer relationships. For consumers, it offers convenience and flexibility. Canceling a service is easier than selling a possession. Yet subscriptions can accumulate invisibly, with many Americans paying for services they've forgotten about. The psychological impact is subtle. We shift from owning entertainment, software, and goods to perpetually renting them, creating ongoing financial obligations that feel small individually but add up significantly, and ensuring we're always just one canceled payment away from losing access. Consider a troubling inefficiency in America's abundant food system. Americans waste approximately 40% of the food produced, roughly 133 billion pounds of food annually, worth an estimated $161 billion. This waste occurs at every level. Farms leave crops unharvested if prices drop too low. Grocery stores discard imperfect produce and items near expiration dates. Restaurants prepare excess portions, and households let food spoil in refrigerators. Meanwhile, over 10% of American households experience food insecurity. The environmental cost is enormous. Rotting food in landfills produces methane, a potent greenhouse gas, and the water, energy, and land used to produce wasted food represent squandered resources. Yet addressing food waste proves complex, involving supply chain coordination, changing consumer habits, clarifying confusing date labels, and developing infrastructure to redirect edible food to those who need it before it spoils. The sound of hammers and machinery signals economic health. The construction industry contributes approximately $900 billion annually to GDP and employs over 11 million Americans, from architects and engineers to electricians and laborers. Construction is deeply cyclical, expanding during economic booms when businesses invest in new facilities and families buy homes, then contracting sharply during recessions. The 2008 financial crisis saw construction employment fall by 2.3 million jobs as home building collapsed. The industry also faces chronic challenges: an aging workforce with many experienced workers nearing retirement, difficulty attracting young workers to physically demanding jobs, and project delays when materials become scarce or expensive. Yet construction remains essential, building the houses families live in, the offices where people work, the roads that connect communities, and the infrastructure that supports modern life. Let your breathing slow as we consider how values shape investments. Environmental, social, and governance, or ESG. Investing has grown from a niche concept to a major force, with over $8 trillion in U.S. assets now managed using ESG criteria. Investors increasingly want their money to support companies that address climate change, treat workers fairly, and maintain ethical governance. Fund managers screen investments based on carbon emissions, labor practices, board diversity, and community impact. Some see this as aligning investments with values. Others view it as a way to identify well-managed companies likely to outperform long-term. Critics argue ESG metrics are inconsistently measured and sometimes used for greenwashing, making companies appear more responsible than they are. The debate reflects fundamental questions. Should investing focus solely on financial returns, or can it, and should it, also pursue social good? Americans consume approximately 400 million cups of coffee daily, making coffee an $80 billion industry in the United States. Coffee shops have become office annexes and community gathering places, with chains like Starbucks operating over 15,000 locations nationwide, while independent cafes anchor neighborhoods. The supply chain stretches from farms in Colombia, Ethiopia, and Vietnam to roasters in American cities to the cup in your hand. Coffee provides livelihoods for 25 million farmers globally, mostly in developing countries, though they capture only a small fraction of the final sale price. Fair trade and direct trade movements attempt to ensure farmers receive fair compensation, while the specialty coffee movement elevates coffee from commodity to craft. This daily ritual represents more than caffeine. It's a global supply chain, a third place between home and work, and a significant economic sector supporting millions of jobs from farm to cafe. America incarcerates more people than any other nation, approximately 2 million individuals in prisons and jails. This creates a significant economic sector. State and federal governments spend over $80 billion annually on corrections. Private prison companies operate facilities housing about 8% of inmates, generating billions in revenue. Beyond prisons themselves, a vast ecosystem exists. Companies providing food services, healthcare, phone systems, and commissary goods to facilities, often charging inmates and their families premium prices with little competition. Some jurisdictions use prison labor, paying inmates cents per hour for work while charging market rates for goods in prison stores. This system creates perverse incentives where prisons become economic engines for rural communities desperate for employment, potentially influencing criminal justice policy. The economic interests embedded in mass incarceration complicate reform efforts, as reducing prison populations would eliminate jobs and revenue streams that communities have come to depend upon. Feel yourself surrendering more deeply to rest as these economic stories wash over you. From the coffee you drink each morning to the investments shaped by values, each system connects to your daily life in quiet ways. Let these thoughts fade now into peaceful darkness. Settle deeper into comfort as we explore the invisible networks connecting us all. Beneath your feet and above your head runs the infrastructure that keeps America connected. Over 5 million miles of fiber optic cable, countless cell towers, and satellites orbiting overhead. The telecommunications industry generates approximately $500 billion annually, with the 5 major carriers investing over $70 billion each year in network upgrades and expansion. Every text message, video call, and streaming movie travels through this vast web. The shift from landlines to mobile phones transformed not just communication, but the economy itself, enabling remote work, on-demand services, and constant connectivity. Yet America lags behind some nations in broadband access, particularly in rural areas where the economics of laying cable don't justify the investment. This digital divide affects education, healthcare access, and economic opportunity, creating a modern form of inequality based on connectivity. From a niche market 40 years ago, organic food has blossomed into a $60 billion industry. Approximately 6% of all food sold in America is now certified organic, grown without synthetic pesticides or fertilizers, following specific sustainability practices. Whole Foods built an empire on organic products, and now conventional supermarkets dedicate significant shelf space to organic options. Consumers pay premium prices, often 20 to 40% more, motivated by health concerns, environmental values, or taste preferences. The science remains debated. Organic foods contain fewer pesticide residues, but aren't necessarily more nutritious, and whether organic farming could feed the world at scale remains contested. Yet the movement represents a broader trend of consumers using purchasing power to influence agricultural practices, voting with their wallets for how they believe food should be grown. This consciousness about food origins reflects changing American values about health, environment, and the connection between what we eat and how it's produced. In the shadows of the American economy operates an industry most people hope never to encounter personally. The debt collection industry employs approximately 130,000 people, generating around $13 billion in revenue annually, pursuing unpaid medical bills, credit card balances, student loans, and other debts. When someone falls behind on payments, their debt is often sold, sometimes for pennies on the dollar, to collection agencies that then attempt to recover the full amount. The industry is heavily regulated under laws like the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, yet complaints about aggressive or deceptive practices remain common. Some debt collectors purchase old debts beyond the statute of limitations, hoping debtors don't realize they're no longer legally obligated to pay. This industry exists because of widespread consumer debt and medical bills, serving as a reminder that behind economic statistics lie millions of Americans struggling financially, one unexpected expense away from collections calls. Allow a gentle smile as we consider America's beloved companions. Americans spend over $130 billion annually on their pets, more than the GDP of many countries. This includes food, veterinary care, grooming, toys, pet insurance, boarding, training, and even pet clothing and furniture. 2/3 of American households own at least one pet, with dogs and cats dominating, but also fish, birds, reptiles, and more exotic animals finding homes. The pet industry has professionalized dramatically. Boutique pet hotels offer webcams so owners can check on their pets remotely. Veterinary medicine has advanced to include MRIs and cancer treatments, and pet insurance helps owners afford expensive care. Pets provide companionship, reduce stress, and for many people represent family members deserving significant investment. The willingness to spend substantial sums on pets reflects both Americans' deep bonds with animals and the discretionary income available even for non-essential purchases. Not all economic activity pursues profit. The nonprofit sector, encompassing charities, foundations, religious organizations, universities, hospitals, and cultural institutions, contributes over $1.3 trillion to the U.S. economy annually. Approximately 12 million Americans work for nonprofits, representing about 10% of the private workforce. These organizations address needs markets don't meet: feeding the hungry, housing the homeless, preserving art and history, advancing research, advocating for causes. They're funded through donations, which totaled over $500 billion in 2022, with individuals providing the vast majority. Tax deductions encourage charitable giving. The recent tax law changes reduced incentives for many donors. The nonprofit sector represents a third way between government and markets, voluntary collective action to pursue public good. Yet nonprofits face challenges: competition for donations, debate about executive compensation, and questions about effectiveness and accountability in sectors spanning from small community organizations to massive international charities. Something revolutionary occurred in the digital age. Information became essentially free to copy and distribute. The marginal cost of sharing a song, movie, document, or software program approaches zero, yet the legal framework assumes information remains scarce and controllable. This tension has created enormous economic disruption. The music industry collapsed from $38 billion in 1999 to $15 billion by 2014 before streaming services created a new model. Newspapers saw advertising revenue evaporate as classified ads moved online. Software companies shifted from selling box products to subscription cloud services. Yet this same dynamic enabled Wikipedia, free educational resources, open source software, and instant global knowledge sharing. The economic challenge is supporting creation when distribution is free. How do musicians, journalists, and programmers earn livings when their work can be copied infinitely? Solutions range from advertising to subscriptions to patronage models, but tension between information's desire to be free and creators' need for compensation remains unresolved. The complexity of American law creates demand for professional interpretation. The legal services industry generates approximately $350 billion annually, with over 1.3 million licensed attorneys practicing in the United States. These lawyers navigate everything from simple wills to complex corporate mergers, from criminal defense to patent law. Legal costs can be prohibitive. Top law firms charge over $1,000 per hour, pricing justice beyond many Americans' reach. Yet the system also provides public defenders for criminal cases and requires companies to inform consumers of legal aid resources in certain situations. Technology has begun disrupting legal services. AI reviews documents. Online services help people create simple contracts and file divorces, and legal research databases have transformed how attorneys work. Still, most legal work requires human judgment about nuanced situations. The legal profession serves as economic gatekeepers, interpreting rules that govern business transactions, protect rights, and resolve disputes. Essential infrastructure for a complex economy. Feel your heartbeat slow as we examine the plastic rectangles that reshape spending. Americans hold approximately 500 million credit card accounts, carrying a collective balance of over $1 trillion. Credit cards transformed commerce, enabling instant purchasing power, protecting against fraud better than cash, providing rewards that incentivize spending. Merchants pay fees of 2 to 3% on every transaction. Costs ultimately pass to consumers through higher prices. The psychology of credit cards is powerful. Studies show people spend more when using cards versus cash. The abstract nature of swiping or tapping disconnects payment from money leaving one's possession. Credit card companies profit from merchant fees and interest. The average APR exceeds 20%, generating enormous revenue from those carrying balances. Yet cards also provide access to credit during emergencies and help build credit histories essential for major purchases. They represent modern money in its most abstract form. Numbers changing in computer systems, value transferred instantly, debt accumulated painlessly until the statement arrives. Behind every business transaction stand the accountants who record, verify, and interpret financial information. The accounting industry employs approximately 1.4 million professionals in the United States, from bookkeepers tracking small business expenses to forensic accountants investigating fraud to CPAs auditing Fortune 500 companies. This profession ensures the numbers businesses report are accurate and follow standardized rules, generally accepted accounting principles or GAAP, allowing investors to compare companies and make informed decisions. Accountants prepare the tax returns that generate government revenue. They identify financial patterns suggesting problems or opportunities. Yet accounting scandals periodically rock the profession. Enron's collapse revealed how accounting tricks could hide massive fraud, leading to stricter regulations. The accounting profession operates in the background of economic life, creating the numerical records that make modern business possible, translating economic reality into standardized language that stakeholders can understand and trust. Let yourself drift even deeper now, like a leaf floating down a calm stream. From telecommunications to pet care, from legal services to accounting, each piece of the economic puzzle fits together in ways both obvious and subtle. Rest in this knowledge, letting it fade into the peaceful background of approaching sleep. As you sink deeper into tranquil rest, consider how some Americans access the wealth locked in their homes. Reverse mortgages allow homeowners aged 62 and older to borrow against their home equity without making monthly payments, with the loan repaid when they sell the home, move, or pass away. The reverse mortgage market encompasses approximately 600,000 active loans worth over $100 billion. For some seniors, this provides death. That universal human experience has been commercialized into a $20 billion industry. The average funeral costs between $7,000 and $12,000, including the casket, service, burial plot, and headstone. Funeral homes operate as businesses while serving families in their most vulnerable moments, a combination that creates ethical tensions. The industry faces consolidation. Large corporations now own thousands of funeral homes while maintaining local names to preserve community trust. Meanwhile, cremation rates have risen dramatically from 25% in 2000 to over 60% today, driven by lower costs and changing cultural attitudes. New options emerge: green burials, human composting, even pressing cremated remains into vinyl records. The funeral industry navigates the difficult intersection of commerce and grief, profit and dignity, revealing how even our final transition has become an economic transaction requiring thousands of dollars and complex consumer decisions. A unique aspect of the American healthcare system operates largely out of public view. The United States supplies approximately 70% of the world's blood plasma, collected at over 900 plasma donation centers across the country. Unlike whole blood donation, which is usually voluntary, plasma donors are typically compensated, sometimes earning several $100s per month for regular donations. This creates what many countries consider an ethical dilemma: the commercialization of human biological material. The plasma industry generates roughly $30 billion annually, with plasma used to manufacture treatments for hemophilia, immune disorders, and other conditions. Donors are disproportionately lower-income Americans using plasma sales to supplement inadequate wages. Critics call this exploitation of the poor. Supporters argue it provides needed income while creating life-saving medicines. The industry reveals how the American economic system commodifies aspects of human existence that other societies handle through purely voluntary systems. Let your mind wander through virtual worlds as we explore digital entertainment. Video gaming has evolved from children's pastime to economic powerhouse, generating over $60 billion annually in the United States. Americans spend more on video games than on movie tickets and music combined. The industry employs hundreds of thousands in development, publishing, esports, streaming, and retail. Gaming habits have shifted dramatically. Mobile games played on smartphones now represent the largest segment, while streaming platforms let millions watch others play games, creating celebrity gamers earning millions through advertising and subscriptions. The pandemic accelerated gaming's growth as people sought entertainment and social connection from home. Games now span from casual mobile puzzles to immersive virtual worlds where players spend thousands of hours. This industry demonstrates how digital entertainment can create enormous economic value from what is essentially software code and creative imagination. Businesses facing complex decisions often turn to outside experts. The management consulting industry generates approximately $300 billion annually in the United States, with firms like McKinsey, Boston Consulting Group, and Deloitte advising corporations and governments on strategy, operations, and organization. Consultants bring specialized expertise, outside perspective, and additional workforce during major projects. Yet the industry faces criticism. Consultants are expensive, charging thousands of dollars per day. And critics argue they sometimes recommend similar solutions regardless of circumstances, or that companies use consultants to justify decisions already made or to implement unpopular changes. The consulting industry thrives in part because complexity has increased: globalization, technology, regulation, creating demand for specialized knowledge that companies can't maintain in-house. It represents the professionalization of business advice, turning strategic guidance into a major economic sector. Concerts, sporting events, and theater performances create a secondary market where tickets are resold, often at significantly marked up prices. The ticket resale market, dominated by platforms like StubHub and Ticketmaster's resale service, generates billions of dollars annually. When popular artists announce tours or championship games approach, tickets purchased at face value are immediately listed for multiples of their original price. This creates frustration. Fans willing to pay the original price find tickets sold out instantly, only to see them available at inflated prices. Some resellers use bots to purchase tickets in bulk the moment they go on sale. Yet the market also provides liquidity, allowing people who can attend to recoup their investment and letting others obtain tickets they missed. Several states have banned certain ticket resale practices, while economists argue that high resale prices simply reveal that original tickets were priced below market clearing levels. A uniquely American industry has emerged from abundance: self-storage. Americans rent approximately 1.7 billion square feet of self-storage space, roughly 5.5 square feet for every person in the country. The industry generates about $40 billion annually, with over 50,000 facilities nationwide. These climate-controlled units hold possessions people own but lack room for, from furniture during moves to seasonal decorations to items they can't bear to discard. The proliferation of self-storage reflects several economic trends: smaller living spaces, consumer accumulation, transient lifestyles, and reluctance to dispose of belongings. Some people store items worth less than they pay in rent, essentially paying monthly fees for the privilege of not making decisions about possessions. The industry's growth suggests Americans have acquired more stuff than their homes can contain, creating a profitable business around managing surplus belongings. Feel your breathing become more rhythmic as we explore the hidden hand reshaping American business. Private equity firms manage over $5 trillion in assets, buying companies, restructuring them, and selling them for profit. These firms have acquired everything from retail chains to healthcare practices to apartment complexes, often using significant borrowed money, leveraged buyouts, to purchase targets. Advocates argue private equity brings efficiency, professional management, and capital to struggling businesses. Critics counter that short-term profit focus leads to cost-cutting that harms workers and service quality, that loading companies with debt endangers their survival, and that private equity's tax advantages. Carried interest allows managers to pay lower tax rates on compensation, are unfair. Private equity's influence extends across the economy, affecting millions of workers employed by portfolio companies, yet operates largely out of public view, with less transparency than publicly traded corporations. Americans purchase approximately 15 billion gallons of bottled water annually, spending over $18 billion on water that's freely available from taps. The bottled water industry has grown dramatically, with per capita consumption increasing from 2 gallons in 1976 to over 45 gallons today. This growth reflects concerns about tap water quality, desire for convenience, and successful marketing positioning bottled water as healthier and purer. Yet most Americans have access to clean, safe tap water that costs a fraction of bottled water's price. The environmental cost is substantial. Millions of plastic bottles, though recyclable, often end up in landfills or oceans. The industry also raises ethical questions when companies bottle water from springs in areas facing drought. Bottled water represents perhaps the ultimate triumph of marketing, creating a massive market for something largely free, turning water into a branded commodity. Through the landscape of American economics, from reverse mortgages to bottled water, each fact a stepping stone across a vast river. Feel yourself approaching the final shore, your mind quiet, your breathing deep and slow. Just a few more gentle facts remain before complete rest. Let the final facts drift over you like a warm blanket settling into place. Professional and college sports have become an $80 billion industry in America, from ticket sales and broadcasting rights to merchandise and sponsorships. The National Football League alone generates over $18 billion in annual revenue. Cities compete fiercely to host teams, often subsidizing stadiums with public money. Taxpayers have contributed over $7 billion to NFL stadiums alone over the past 2 decades. Sports create economic activity beyond the games themselves. Restaurants and bars fill on game days. Hotels book solid during tournaments. Jobs are created from stadium workers to sports journalists. Yet economists debate whether sports generate net economic benefit or simply redistribute existing spending. A family spending $500 at a baseball game might have spent that money at local businesses instead. Still, sports provide intangible value, community identity, shared experiences, and moments of collective joy that transcend simple economics. Behind every prescription filled at your local pharmacy lies a complex supply chain spanning the globe. The pharmaceutical supply chain involves manufacturers, wholesalers, distributors, pharmacy benefit managers, insurance companies, and retail pharmacies, each taking a portion of the final price. Approximately 40% of the cost of a prescription drug represents the drug itself, with the rest covering this distribution network. Most generic drugs are manufactured overseas, particularly in India and China, raising concerns about supply chain vulnerabilities. The COVID-19 pandemic exposed these weaknesses when shortages of basic medicines occurred. The complexity serves some purposes, ensuring proper storage and handling, preventing counterfeits, managing returns, but also creates opportunities for profit-taking at each step. Efforts to simplify this chain or allow imports from countries with lower prices face resistance from interests benefiting from the current system's complexity. State lotteries collectively generate over $100 billion in annual sales, with approximately half returned as prizes and much of the remainder funding state programs, especially education. Lottery tickets are purchased disproportionately by lower-income Americans, spending a larger percentage of their income on tickets despite having the greatest need to save money. The odds are astronomical, roughly 1 in 300 million for major jackpots. Yet millions play, drawn by dreams of instant wealth. Critics call lotteries a regressive tax on the poor and mathematically illiterate, exploiting hope and innumeracy for government revenue. Supporters argue people freely choose to play and that funds support worthy causes. The lottery reveals tension between personal freedom and paternalism. Should government operate gambling that primarily takes money from those who can least afford to lose it? It's a question without easy answers, reflecting different values about individual choice and collective responsibility. Feel yourself drifting peacefully as we consider the economics of aging. The senior living industry, including assisted living facilities, nursing homes, and continuing care retirement communities, generates approximately $440 billion annually, serving over 5 million residents. As the baby boom generation ages, this industry grows rapidly. Costs are substantial. Assisted living averages $54,000 annually. Nursing home care can exceed $100,000 per year. Many seniors exhaust their savings paying for care, eventually qualifying for Medicaid coverage. The industry faces challenges: worker shortages as demand for caregivers grows, quality concerns as some facilities prioritize profits over care, and ethical questions about how to provide dignity in final years within economic constraints. This industry forces society to confront difficult questions about aging, family responsibility, and what we owe to the elderly. Questions with profound economic and moral dimensions that will only grow more urgent as the population ages. From countercultural statement to mainstream fashion, tattoos have become a $3 billion industry. Nearly 1 in 3 Americans now has at least one tattoo, with younger generations embracing body art at even higher rates. Thousands of tattoo parlors operate nationwide, with top artists commanding waiting lists months long and charging hundreds of dollars per hour. The industry has professionalized, better sterilization practices, higher artistic standards, conventions showcasing talent. Laser tattoo removal, for those with regrets, has become its own lucrative sub-industry. The normalization of tattoos reflects broader cultural shifts and creates economic opportunity for artists who might otherwise struggle to monetize their talents. Yet workplace discrimination persists in some industries, and health insurance doesn't cover complications, creating occasional controversies. This industry demonstrates how cultural changes create new economic sectors, turning what was once taboo into a thriving business serving millions. Love may be priceless, but weddings carry a hefty price tag. The American wedding industry generates approximately $70 billion annually, with the average wedding costing around $30,000, though costs vary dramatically by region and taste. This includes venues, catering, photography, flowers, music, dresses, rings, and countless other expenses. An entire ecosystem serves engaged couples: wedding planners, invitation designers, cake makers, DJs, honeymoon coordinators. The industry thrives on social expectations and once-in-a-lifetime thinking that justifies expense. Yet many couples begin married life with significant debt from their wedding day, and a growing movement advocates for simpler, less expensive celebrations. The wedding industry illustrates how cultural traditions become commercialized, with businesses carefully cultivating the sense that nothing but the best will do for this special day, turning a meaningful life transition into a major economic transaction. As you settle into the deepest rest, consider how tastes change and create new industries. From just 89 breweries in 1978, America now has over 9,000 craft breweries, generating approximately $30 billion in annual sales. This explosion reflects changing preferences, consumers willing to pay premium prices for local, distinctive beers with character and story. Craft breweries have revitalized neighborhoods, turned industrial spaces into gathering places, and provided alternatives to corporate brands. The movement represents several economic trends: preference for artisanal products, desire to support local businesses, and willingness to pay more for perceived quality and authenticity. Yet as craft beer succeeded, large corporations acquired successful breweries, raising questions about what craft means when owned by conglomerates. The industry demonstrates how consumer preferences shape markets, creating opportunities for entrepreneurs who identify and serve emerging tastes. A new profession emerged in the 21st century: the social media influencer. The influencer marketing industry is valued at approximately $21 billion, with brands paying content creators to promote products to their followers. Top influencers earn millions annually through sponsorships, affiliate marketing, and brand partnerships. This represents a dramatic shift in advertising, from polished corporate messages to seemingly authentic recommendations from people followers trust and relate to. Micro-influencers with smaller but engaged audiences can earn substantial income, while platforms like Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube enable anyone to potentially build a following and monetize attention. Yet the career is precarious. Algorithms change, audiences are fickle, and the pressure to constantly create content leads to burnout. The influencer economy demonstrates how attention itself has become currency, with those who can capture and hold it able to convert it into income. Americans generate approximately 292 million tons of trash annually, and the recycling industry processes a portion, though less than many assume. The recycling industry generates about $110 billion in economic activity and supports over 500,000 jobs. Yet recycling economics are challenging. For decades, America shipped recyclables to China until 2018, when China stopped accepting most materials, causing crisis in the industry. The cost of collecting, sorting, and processing recyclables often exceeds the value of recovered materials, requiring subsidies or landfill fees to remain viable. Contamination, wrong items in recycling bins, further increases costs. Yet recycling reduces environmental impact and conserves resources, creating a tension between economic viability and environmental necessity. Many recycling programs have been scaled back as economics shift, revealing that the familiar three arrows symbol masked a more complicated reality about whether recycling is economically sustainable without policy support. Americans are mobile people, and this mobility creates economic opportunity. The moving industry generates approximately $19 billion annually, helping Americans relocate for jobs, family, lifestyle, or fresh starts. Professional movers handle everything from local apartment moves to cross-country corporate relocations. The industry is labor-intensive and seasonal, with summer being peak moving season. Moving costs vary dramatically, A local move might cost a few $100s while relocating across the country can run $5,000 or more. The industry includes truck rentals, moving labor, packing services, and pod storage. Interstate moves are regulated at the federal level to protect consumers from fraud, a necessary protection in an industry where customers are vulnerable, having already left their old homes when problems might arise. The moving industry exists because Americans change locations frequently, whether chasing opportunity or seeking change, a mobility that shapes economic geography. Let your mind rest as we near the journey's end. Financial advisors, planners, and wealth managers oversee approximately $100 trillion in assets, charging fees to help Americans invest, plan for retirement, minimize taxes, and transfer wealth. The industry includes fee-only advisors who charge for advice, commission-based advisors who earn from product sales, and hybrid models. Regulations attempt to ensure advisors act in clients' best interests, though conflict persists when advisors profit from particular recommendations. Technology has disrupted the industry through robo-advisors, automated investment platforms charging lower fees, yet many Americans still value human guidance for complex situations. The industry thrives on financial complexity and people's uncertainty about managing money, providing peace of mind to those who can afford advice, while potentially widening gaps for those who cannot access professional guidance for navigating an increasingly complex financial system. Health consciousness has become big business. The fitness industry generates approximately $35 billion annually, from gym memberships and personal training to fitness equipment and activewear. Over 40,000 gyms and studios operate nationwide, offering everything from traditional weightlifting to boutique cycling classes to yoga and Pilates. The industry is cyclical. Memberships spike in January as New Year's resolutions form, then decline as motivation wanes. Business models often depend on members paying, but rarely attending, with gyms selling more memberships than capacity would allow if everyone showed up simultaneously. The pandemic disrupted the industry as gyms closed, accelerating the shift toward home fitness equipment and virtual classes. Yet gyms provide more than exercise. They offer community, routine, and accountability that home workouts struggle to replicate. The fitness industry thrives on the gap between aspiration and action, selling hope that this time will be different. In an age of digital communication, physical greeting cards persist as a $4 billion industry. Americans purchase approximately 6.5 billion greeting cards annually. Birthday cards, sympathy cards, holiday cards, card for every occasion imaginable. Hallmark and American greetings dominate, though independent card makers serve niche markets with contemporary designs and humor. The average card costs $2 to $5, representing a small gesture with outsized emotional meaning. Cards serve a social function, expressing sentiments people struggle to articulate themselves, maintaining relationships through life transitions, showing someone was worth the effort of selection and mailing. Yet the industry faces decline as e-cards and text messages replace physical cards for many occasions. The greeting card industry's persistence demonstrates how certain traditions retain value despite technological alternatives, how people still seek tangible expressions of connection in an increasingly digital world. Despite childcare's economic importance, childcare workers, who enable parents to work, rank among the lowest paid professions. The median childcare worker earns approximately $28,000 annually, less than animal care workers. This creates a paradox. Childcare is essential and expensive for families, yet workers caring for children earn poverty-level wages. The industry struggles with high turnover as workers leave for better-paying jobs, affecting care quality. The shortage worsened during the pandemic as many workers left the field permanently. This reflects broader questions about how America values care work. The essential but undercompensated labor performed predominantly by women that enables the rest of the economy to function. The childcare worker shortage reveals a system where the market fails to adequately compensate work society depends upon, requiring either policy intervention or acceptance that many families will struggle to afford quality care. Feel the final facts settling over you like the last leaves of autumn, soft and gentle. The resale and secondhand clothing market has exploded to approximately $40 billion annually, driven by online platforms like Poshmark, ThredUp, and The RealReal. What was once associated with thrift stores has become mainstream. Younger generations embrace secondhand shopping for environmental and economic reasons. The average American discards approximately 81 pounds of clothing annually, creating abundant supply. Resale addresses both fashion's environmental impact and consumers' desire for affordable variety. Yet fast fashion's low quality means many garments don't survive multiple owners, and shipping individual items carries environmental costs. The growth of secondhand markets represents several trends converging: environmental consciousness, frugality, desire for unique items, and technology enabling peer-to-peer sales at scale, creating new economic models from what was once discarded. Americans spend approximately $90 billion annually on beauty products and services, cosmetics, skincare, hair care, salon visits, and spa treatments. The industry encompasses everything from drugstore mascara to luxury face creams, from quick haircuts to day-long spa experiences. Social media has transformed beauty, with tutorials teaching techniques, once requiring professionals and influencers launching their own product lines. The industry particularly targets women, though men's grooming products represent the fastest-growing segment. Beauty marketing often plays on insecurities, promising transformation through purchase. Yet the industry also provides jobs for millions and allows creative expression. The tension between empowerment and exploitation runs through beauty commerce. Is makeup a tool for confidence or a tax on insecurity? The answer likely depends on individual experience, but the economics are clear. Appearance matters in American society, and millions profit from that reality. Cash, once the dominant form of payment, now accounts for only about 19% of consumer transactions. Credit cards, debit cards, and digital payment apps have largely replaced physical currency for most Americans. Some businesses no longer accept cash at all, citing efficiency and safety. This shift has implications. Transactions become trackable, fees are paid to payment processors, and people without bank accounts face exclusion from an increasingly cashless economy. The decline of cash also affects how people relate to money. Swiping a card creates less psychological pain than handing over bills, potentially encouraging overspending. Yet digital payments offer convenience, security, and records for budgeting. The gradual disappearance of cash represents the abstraction of money itself, from physical objects with tangible weight to numbers and computer systems, changing not just how we pay, but how we think about and experience financial transactions. Weather isn't just small talk, it's a major economic force. Weather-related disasters cost the American economy over $150 billion in an average year, from hurricanes and floods to droughts and wildfires. Agriculture depends entirely on weather patterns, with droughts devastating crops and unusual warmth or cold affecting harvests. Retail sales fluctuate with weather. Warm winters hurt jacket sales while harsh storms boost snow shovel purchases. Construction schedules depend on weather. Airlines cancel flights during storms, and tourism rises and falls with seasonal patterns. Weather forecasting itself is a multi-billion-dollar industry serving businesses that need to plan around conditions. As climate change intensifies weather extremes, these economic impacts grow, affecting insurance costs, agricultural yields, and infrastructure resilience. Weather reminds us that despite technological advancement, the economy remains fundamentally connected to natural forces beyond human control. And now, the final fact to carry you into peaceful sleep. The American dream, that promise that hard work leads to prosperity, that each generation will do better than the last, has shaped economic expectations for centuries. Yet the dream evolves. For earlier generations, it meant a house, steady job, and comfortable retirement. Today, many young Americans define it differently, valuing experiences over possessions, flexibility over stability, purpose over profit. Economic mobility, the ability to rise from poverty to prosperity, has declined in recent decades. A child born in 1940 had a 90% chance of earning more than their parents. For those born in 1980, it's only 50%. Student debt, housing costs, healthcare expenses, and stagnant wages create barriers previous generations didn't face to the same degree. Yet Americans remain optimistic, entrepreneurial, and resilient. The American dream hasn't died. It's changing, adapting to new realities, as each generation redefines success for themselves in an ever-evolving economic landscape. And so our journey through 100 facts about the American economic system comes to a peaceful close. From the vast scale of GDP to the intimate choice of greeting cards, from the Federal Reserve's quiet power to the transformation of how we pay for coffee. Each fact a thread in an enormous tapestry depicting how hundreds of millions of people work, trade, invest, and build lives together. The American economy is not just numbers on screens or theories in textbooks. It's the farmer rising before dawn, the nurse working night shifts, the teacher inspiring young minds, the entrepreneur risking everything on a dream. It's the immigrant starting a business, the retiree managing savings, the student choosing a career path. It's all of us, making countless decisions daily that ripple outward, creating the complex system we've explored together tonight. As you drift now into complete rest, let these economic stories fade into peaceful darkness. Know that tomorrow, when you wake, this vast economic machine will continue its work. Imperfect, evolving, always changing, but built on the daily efforts of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Sleep well, dream peacefully, and rest in the knowledge that you now understand a little more about the invisible forces shaping the world around you.